Now this is a story, and it's not even tragic, where we all learned that friendship is magic. And I want to make sure there's nothing I skip. I'll tell you how I came to know the Princess of Friendship. In Western Equestria, born and raised on the rock farm is where I spent most of my days. But Ponyville's where Twilight Sparkle met me. Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, and Rarity. She learned one little lesson, that's all it took. Ask her about friendship, cause she wrote the book. And she turned big scary villains from mad to delight. How'd I feel about it? Well, no decided. Wings in a castle, so don't even trip. She's Twilight Sparkle, the Princess of Friendship.
My Little Pony, an all-new episode, Saturday at 11:30 a.m. on Discovery Family.
Janja was nearby with Cheesy and Chungu. Janja had noticed Seth in the distance. Hey, the Scarbrain is here. Janja and the other hyenas all flinched and winced at the sight of the spark. Janja tried to regain composure, regaining some confidence. Oh, we just want to talk. Janja exchanged looks with Cheesy and Chunga before looking back at Seth. We want to make a deal. Janja hesitated for a moment, but then spoke. Well, it's, kinda complicated. Cheesy and Chunga snickered at that. Janja snapped his head at them. Shut up! He snapped at them. You two are being more than useless right now. Janja tensed up a little at how quickly Seth was getting to the point, and how he seemed to not let up. Right. He stammered a little bit. What the deal is? It's, He stopped, not being able to figure out how to word it again. Janja's eyes widened. You wouldn't dare. Janja gave a sigh of relief and took a breath, mentally preparing himself to say what he wanted.
Invitation 届いたなら大人だ男女望みは何かながらる voice 瞬間聞かせない
しらくつく命の汗軸も突き抜けて全て解き放たれるまで
支配よまたはでもラバンピースどんなキャンプも世界は君の森のものに Got to go the next round 勝ち切ってみせて夢の瞬間をスタンバイそれぞれが抱くドラマ To last the last 振り落とされたらそこで Drop out 誰かを傷つけてしまった傷ついてもなれないけれ To last the last 胸に湧きた強くぼきをつけ
朝向き風向き読み取りまた手を組み裏切り期待と願い諦めない
勝ち取った夢の中で Tell me that it will be together
Janja took one more deep breath, feeling a bit nervous, but he tried to hide it. The deal, he struggled to get the words out. Cheesy and Chunga were trying not to laugh at this point. Janja snapped his head at them. Will you two shut up? He yelled. Janja tensed up a little as Seth pulled him into the cave, his ears going back. Janja swallowed, feeling even more nervous being alone and cornered like this. All right, the deal, he muttered. He took a moment, trying to collect himself before finally just blurting out. All right, fine. I'm gonna call a truce. His eyes were squeezed shut, bracing himself for any negative reaction. Janja chanced to glance a peek at Seth, opening one eye to see his reaction. Upon seeing his confusion, he slowly opened the other eye and looked at him with uncertainty. You heard me? I just want to call a truce, he said, still bracing for anything. Janja took a step back at how close Seth had suddenly come to him, looking nervous and a little intimidated. Janja's eyes widened and he froze, looking confused at how Seth was reacting. What the... Jan... Janja's tail twitched, still very confused as to what Seth was getting at. What do you mean? Janja still looked confused, but he figured he might as well just answer since Seth wasn't budging. Us. He hesitated, and was a bit quieter, adding, I suppose. Janja stood there, stunned as he watched Seth run off. What just happened? Cheesy and Chunga both stepped out from around a rock, their eyes wide and jaws hung open. Did the Scar Brain seriously just agree to a truce with you? Chunga asked. I think he did, Janja said slowly, looking dumbfounded.
Kion strolls towards Seth, noticing his distant expression. He settles down beside him on the ledge, concern flickering in his eyes. Kion breaks the silence, his voice gentle. You still thinking about Janja? Kion nods, understanding the rarity of such a situation. It's unusual, I know. But if Janja means what he's saying, maybe there's a chance for a truce between Lion and Hyena. Kion places a comforting paw on Seth's shoulder. I understand your skepticism, Seth. Hyenas have tried to outsmart us before. But we can't let fear hold us back from potentially making progress. And remember, we have Jasiri as an ally. She knows Janja and might be able to give us insight into whether his intentions are genuine or not. Kion smirked at Seth's comment, appreciating his humor. Exactly. We're a force to be reckoned with. Just be careful, Seth, and come to us if you need anything, okay? Kion watches Seth walk away, his expression thoughtful. He hoped that this newfound alliance with Janja would lead to something good for the Pride Lands. But he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there might be more to Janja's motives. Only time would tell.
Janja was sitting outside his den with Cheesy and Chunga. The two other hyenas both looked happy and carefree. However, Janja looked deep in thought. He was quiet. He seemed to be very zoned out. Too deep in thought to hear Seth approach. Janja flinched, snapping out of his thoughts as he looked up and saw Seth. Yeah. Seems that way, he said with an indifferent tone, crossing his arms. Janja was caught off guard by the directness of that, but he quickly regained his composure. I promise, it's not a trap, he said rather simply, crossing his arm. Janja simply watched him look off, studying him for a moment before asking, something on your mind? Janja narrowed his eyes at that comment. Watch it, Scarbrain. Don't get on my bad side, he warned with a hat. Janja rolled his eyes, letting out a huff and smoothing his mane flat after Seth messed it up. Sure you wouldn't, he said sarcastically. Janja looked away, his ears going back a little. His expression turned unreadable. Nothing, really, he answered quietly. Just realized a few things. Figured, might as well do something different. He kept his gaze away, not wanting to make eye contact. Just there was a short silence. Janja was still not looking at him. He seemed to be lost in thought. Janja seemed surprised at Seth's words and finally turned to look at him, raising a brow. Just, Seth? Janja. Janja cracked a smirk, a cocky grin crossing his face. Sure you do. He teased. Don't get all soft on me, Scarbrain, he added playful. Janja grinned a bit wider at the sound of Seth's laugh, and Cheesy and Chunga both looked at each other and smirked. Janja looked baffled, tilting his head slightly. What do you mean? Janja took a small while to process all that. He seemed a bit surprised. I honestly didn't think about it like that. He admitted. You really think they'd think that? Janja thought for a moment, staring at the ground. Hey, Seth? Can I ask you something? Personal? He asked hesitantly, still keeping his gaze down. Janja seemed to be having a hard time getting himself to ask. It's sorta about your scar. He looked up at him, his expression looking uneasy and uncertain. I just was wondering, well, I guess the question I want to ask is, he trailed off. Janja gave a small nod. He was a bit surprised that Seth guessed, how you got your scar? He asked a bit quietly. Janja stared at him, surprised. He asked in disbelief. Janja was silent for a few moments, processing this new information. Finally, he spoke. I was definitely not expecting you to say that. Janja was silent for a few moments, then eventually looking in the direction Seth was looking. Hey, Seth! Can I ask you something else? Janja hesitated, feeling a bit awkward asking this question. How old are you? He seemed surprised again. He thought for a second before asking incredulously. Only 10? Janja couldn't help but let out a small laugh, shaking his head in amazement. Dang, you're one young Scarbrain, he teased. Janja nodded, looking away a bit. You should go. And this comes... Janja nodded back. See you tomorrow, Scarbrain, he added playfully.
Invitation 届いたならオペランタ男女望みは何だ誰がのノイズシャイハン引き返せない
果てしなく続く命の汗軸も突き抜けて全て解き放たれるまで
支配よまたはでもラバーピースどんな野望も
世界は君の森の森 I got to go the next round
勝ち聞いてみせて